What's going on, YouTube? This is the SG1 Sports SEC football channel, and we now give you the top 10 players for the Georgia Bulldogs. And this team has a lot of talent. I think they're right up there. When you compare the top 10 players on each of these teams, I think they can match up with anyone in the SEC. That's Alabama, that's LSU, that's Florida. To me, those are the four most talented teams heading into this season, at least at looking at their top 10 players. And there's a lot of talent in the secondary. I've already mentioned that. I talked about it in the Florida video. All of these teams seem to have a lot coming back in the secondary. Georgia is no exception, and we are going to kick it off with the secondary. Number 10 is Eric Stokes. I think he'll be a big-time leader for them at that cornerback position. He had 20 tackles in 2018, had one tackle for loss, and he also broke up 9 passes. So he had 9 passes defended. Didn't get an interception. That's maybe the one down area for him, but maybe he'll get that interception in 2019. And again, pretty solid numbers for him from the cornerback position. I think he will be in for a big year in 2019. For number 9, we're actually going to go with a true freshman coming in. That is Nolan Smith. This team can use a little bit of help on the defensive line. I think he is an instant impact player. He was the number 1 recruit in the country according to 24/7 Sports, and that's at any position. So obviously this is a very, very talented kid. And again, the defensive line doesn't look to be, it looks to be solid for Georgia, but I wouldn't say that it's one of the most dominant defensive lines in the country or anything like that. So again, I think he will be able to play and help out right away on this Georgia defensive line. We move on to number 8, and we're going to go to the offensive side. How about Jeremiah Holloman? Last season, he had some really good players ahead of him on the depth chart, but this year I think he could be the go-to guy for Jake Fromm in this passing attack. He had 24 catches last year, 418 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was a big play player, came up with big plays, was good in the red zone. And again, I think he's going to be that number 1 target. You look at Pickens, the freshman coming in, he's going to be good. They had the transfer from Miami, so they're going to have some talented guys to come in. But I still think that Holloman will be the go-to guy. We go back to defense for number 7, and we go to Monty Rice. Had some injuries last season, but still was able to get 59 tackles on the season. He had 1 sack, also had a forced fumble. So some pretty solid numbers for him. I think he could really emerge as that leader for this defense, especially the leader for the linebackers. Maybe their best linebacker coming into this 2019 season. Again, I think the strength of this Georgia defense is really in the secondary this year, but their front 7 will still be good. It'll still be one of the better front 7s probably in the country, and I think Monty Rice will lead the way there. For number 6, we got to go with the kicker, and that is Rodrigo Blankenship. One of the best, maybe the best kicker in the country coming into 2019. I'm not going to say that just yet. I think he's definitely the best kicker in the SEC. Last year, he was 19 of 23, only missed 4 field goals. And how about from 40 plus? 8 of 10 from 40 plus. I think he was 1 for 1 from 50 plus. But if he had more opportunities, he could have had more long field goals than just that. I think he had 2 50-plus yarders in 2018. Didn't miss an extra point. And again, maybe the most reliable kicker in the country. At number 5, we go to Andrew Thomas, one of the best offensive linemen in the country. Last season, he was an all-SEC first-team member, and that was last year. So this year, he should start off the season, preseason, as a first-team guy. Maybe a first-team All-American potentially. Now, this offensive line for Georgia, I think, might be the best in the SEC and one of the best in the country. I think he is the leader for them, the best player on that offensive line, and we have him at number 5. Number 4, I tell you what, 1 through 4 were extremely tough for me. All 4 of these players are just really, really good. J.R. Reed is who we went with at number 4. He had 66 tackles last season, 2 tackles for loss. One of those was a sack, a couple of interceptions. And you look at him at that safety position, and we still have another safety to add to this list. That's how good they are on the back end. Probably the best 1-2 combo, if you're talking about safeties in the country. I'd probably go ahead and say that with J.R. Reed and then the other person that we're going to talk about in a second. But before we get to him, we're going to go back to the offensive side. Jake Fromm at number 3, over 2,700 yards passing last season, 30 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, had a 67% completion percentage. Just really, really solid numbers. I know he has had a couple of bad games. He had a bad game against LSU last year. The year before, he had a bad game against Auburn. But if you look at overall his career, he's just been so good for this Georgia team. And coming in as a true freshman starting, and then what he did last year, I think he's going to be potentially a Heisman candidate in 2019. Another guy that might be on that list as a Heisman candidate is DeAndre Swift. I think he's the best offensive player on this Georgia team. It's close between Fromm and Swift, but I've got to go with Swift. Last year, over 1,000 yards rushing. It dealt with some injuries last year as well. Almost 300 yards receiving, had 13 total touchdowns. I think you're going to see those numbers go up even more. Elijah Holyfield is gone. Yes, they have some other talented backs, but I think DeAndre Swift is going to be the go-to guy for them. And if he can stay healthy, it could be a 1,500-yard season, even though he's going to be sharing time with other running backs. But at number 1, we're going to go with Richard LeCounte. Again, it was close, 1 through 4. At one point, I had J.R. Reed at number 1. So that's how much I moved these guys around. But I decided to go with LeCounte. He was their leading tackler last season, had 74 tackles. And again, that's from the safety position. He had an interception. He had 2 passes defended. He had 2 forced fumbles. He had 2 fumble recoveries just all over the field. Filled up the stat sheet. And I think that he is going to be Georgia's best player in 2019. But like I said, it was very close, 1 through 4. And even Andrew Thomas, one of the better offensive linemen in the country, he could even be in that discussion as well. So I'm going to hear from you, especially you Georgia fans. How would you rank these players? Who do you agree with or disagree with? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports SEC Football Channel.